Hey guys, it's Tori, and today I'm going to be doing a very fun video. It's one that I've been looking forward to filming all month long, and that is my personal ranking of Jane Austen's main male love interests. I don't really consider myself a huge romance reader, as you can tell if you've watched my channel, but I do appreciate a good romance, and I do have moments when I particularly appreciate well-drawn male love interests in books that I read and films that I watch. So anyway, let's just get into this. One quick little note I will mention is I have also included Mr. Bingley from Pride and Prejudice, and of course Colonel Brandon from Sense and Sensibility, as well as Edward Ferrars, just because I feel like those men represent pretty strong male love interests within their respective stories, especially Colonel Brandon, honestly. But anyway, I have included them, and let's just get right into this. So starting from the bottom, my least favorite male love interest in Jane Austen's work is Edmund Bertram from Mansfield Park. I feel like a lot of people kind of hate him, and I wouldn't say I hate him, but I do dislike him. He does drive me crazy in his complete lack of understanding of where Fanny's coming from a lot of the time. Sometimes I even wonder why she really loves him, because even though he's very kind to her and generous to her, he doesn't actually really understand her. It takes him a very long time to really get her. And in fact, we don't even see him come to the point where he does fully respect her and recognize who she is as a person more fully. It's very much skipped over in the end of the novel. I also think he's very blind when it comes to Miss Crawford, and it kind of drives me crazy that he is so easily drawn in by her. Again, I don't hate him as much as other people, and I do see that, you know, he's just an imperfect person, and I can appreciate that on some level, but it does annoy me enough that I just have to put him at the bottom of my list, unfortunately. Number 7 is Edward Ferrars, and really with him, it's mostly just a lack of feeling like I even know him all that well. He's not in Sense and Sensibility all that much. For the majority of the book, he's actually off page, and I just feel like he seems sweet, he seems nice, and I feel like if we had had an opportunity as readers to get to know him better, I would have liked him better. I really like how he's portrayed in the 1998? I can't remember. Anyway, the 90s Sense and Sensibility adaptation with Emma Thompson and Kate Winslet. I like how they portray him in that, and if that was in the book, I would probably put him higher, but because that's not necessarily what's in the book, and what's in the book is very minimal as far as information about him, I just have to put him towards the bottom of this list, even though, like I said, there is potential there. I just don't feel like it's explored enough in the book for me to confidently say that I really like him. Number 6 is Captain Wentworth, which I know a lot of people may be shocked that I have him so low on this list, because I know a lot of people really like him, but I just don't feel like, similar to Edward Ferrars, I feel like I don't really get the chance to know him. A lot of his conversations with Anne in the book are very much glossed over. We don't actually hear what they have to say, we just get to see what Anne perceives are his motives and things like that, and it's just very, he becomes very ambiguous because of that. His letter, of course, is phenomenal, and I do feel like we get to know him better than we get to know Edward Ferrars, so that's why he's a little higher up on this list, but he just doesn't do much for me, unfortunately, and I feel like his interactions with Anne are not... They're very tension-filled, but we're not able to really see it because we don't get it, like I said, we don't get as much dialogue between the two of them. So while I have nothing against him and I like him, I feel like I know him better than Edward Ferrars, I still don't feel like I know him enough to really solidly say that I love him as much as some of the others. Number 5, I have Mr. Bingley, and now we're getting more into the ones that we know pretty well and I feel like I can have a stronger opinion on. Mr. Bingley I really like, actually, a lot, and in some ways I like him better than Mr. Darcy, but I just don't think, like, if it was a real situation where I could, like, actually date him, I don't think I would necessarily super get along with him. I just feel like he's too energetic for me. He also doesn't seem like the type to appreciate good books and stuff, and while I've never been the type that needs to date someone who loves reading as much as me, I do prefer to date someone who does read at least a little bit and will be open to listening to me discussing books and actually, at least on some level, enjoy those conversations. And I think Mr. Bingley might be really good at pretending to be be enjoying a conversation like that, but I don't know that he necessarily will deeply. I think it will be a very shallow enjoyment, if that makes sense. So there's nothing wrong with Mr. Bingley. I just don't think he and I would be very compatible, but I do really like reading about him, and I think he's a really good guy in a lot of ways, and I think for a lot of women it would make sense to me that they would prefer Mr. Bingley over Mr. Darcy because he offers very good qualities that would work for certain people, but like I said, just not quite for me. Number 4 is a slightly similar situation, and that's Henry Tilney from Northanger Abbey. I really like Henry Tilney a lot. I just feel like he might be a little too sarcastic for me. I need a good balance. I enjoy some solid sarcasm and wittiness like that. But honestly, he can come across as pretty unkind in some ways to Catherine, in my opinion, as I'm reading it, as I listened to the audiobook this last time I read it. I just felt like it was strange how much he treats Catherine like a child, and I felt like he sometimes could, overdo it a little bit with the sarcasm, which I find difficult, but there's also a lot of charm to him that I really like, and I feel like I'd be more compatible with him than with Mr. Bingley, but I still feel like I would only be able to date him for a while and then would have to break up because I think he would drive me a little bit crazy after a time. But there is definitely a charm about him that I do really enjoy. Number 3 is Mr. Darcy, and Mr. Darcy, kind of a similar thing, just a different set of characteristics. I feel like Mr. Darcy has a lot of charm to him. He has a very good heart, and I appreciate his willingness to change, not for other people's sake necessarily, but in his own integrity. He's willing to better himself and recognize his problems. He's able to humble his pride throughout the story, and that just shows a level of self-awareness and humility that I really appreciate. I feel like I'd get along with him better than some of the others I've mentioned, but again, I don't know if I would go all the way to marriage with him if I was in some sort of situation where I could do that. I just feel like he can be a little too stoic and serious, and I need a little bit more enthusiasm and humor and wittiness from someone who I would go in a long-term relationship with. So I really like him, and I think he has a lot of great qualities, but he's a little too serious for me in a lot of ways. Number 2 and number 1 kind of can switch around depending on the day, but I put them in this order because most of the time I would say this is the order I would say put them in. And number 2 is Colonel Brandon. Of course, from Sense and Sensibility, definitely we get to know him way better than we get to know Edward Ferrars, which is interesting because I feel like we get to know Eleanor better than we get to know Marianne in some ways. But I just feel like Colonel Brandon he's very kind. He's still shy like Mr. Darcy, but I feel like we get a little bit more energy out of him, which I appreciate. He's also just so understanding and good. Like, Marianne does not deserve him. I ship Eleanor and Colonel Brandon still to this day. I mean, I don't mind Edward Ferrars. I just don't feel like I know him very well, but I feel like Colonel Brandon I love their friendship, and I just feel like if that had been able to grow, it would have been perfect. But Colonel Brandon is just he's very level-headed and good-hearted, but he has, like I said, a little more energy, a little bit more humor to him. He also is just so, Marianne does not treat him very well and honestly breaks his heart many times, and he still is just willing to allow her to make her own decisions. He doesn't force himself on her. He makes it clear that he's interested, but he doesn't continue to pursue her when it's clear that she's interested in someone else. And when it seems that the other man has won, he's willing to concede it, even though he knows these horrible things about this man. He's willing to just let Marianne make her own decision and fall in love where she will. And it's just so admirable. I just really love Colonel Brandon so much. He's definitely in number 2 spot, if not number 1 spot, depending on the day, like I said. But my number 1, apparently I'm into some of the older men in Jane Austen, but my number 1 is Mr. Knightley from Emma. If I'm being totally honest, on reflection, I might be more willing to marry Colonel Brandon than Mr. Knightley, but I would still be willing to very strongly consider marrying Mr. Knightley, should I ever be in that position. I appreciate his good heart, his awareness of his tenants. He treats Mr. Martin so well, and I absolutely love that. that. He also has moments of showing flirtatiousness and some sarcasm and humor, and I do really appreciate that about him as well. I may struggle a bit with his consistent almost need to voice his opinions about other people to them, particularly to the woman he loves, Emma. Personally, I feel like that would just be a little wearing because I beat myself up enough for both of us. I don't need him to do that and point out my flaws as well, at least not on that level that he does. But the thing is, like I said, I would be willing to consider my own personal relationship with him if I were in such a situation, but I also really love his relationship with Emma. I feel like Emma really is able to handle his flaws better than I could, and they're just I really like them. Even though the age difference, I can understand people being critical of that. I think their personalities and their values are just in line enough that it just works really well in my mind. So I put Mr. Knightley as number 1 because even though Colonel Brandon is maybe a little bit more appealing to me personally, I still really find myself attracted to Mr. Knightley, and I like his relationship with Emma, whereas Colonel Brandon's relationship with Marianne is not necessarily my favorite. So that's why I put those two in that order, but I mean, I love both of them. They're great. So yes, that is my ranking of Jane Austen's male love interests. Let me know down below your thoughts on my ranking, what your ranking is. I would love to know, and some of your thoughts on which one's your favorite, which one's your least favorite. I hope you're having a wonderful Jane Austen July, and I will see you next time. Bye!